This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Omakase. It is episode number 143, and after about 20 minutes of technical difficulties, I've got Mr. Joel Abraham from the Super J-Cast on the line. It is, I think, after 10 o'clock at night over in the hotel room in Thailand where Joel is. So, first of all, Joel, thank you very much for your patience. I don't know how you put up with that, but I greatly appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here. It just means I can shirk my parenting responsibilities because it's a serious business. You know, we've got to be delivering the content to people during these difficult times, John.
It's true. So, and if there's any if people don't listen to Super J-Cast, first of all, Joel, tell them how dare you.
Yeah, what are you doing? I mean, the brilliant shows we've been putting out over the last couple of months.
There's no New Japan, and you still somehow have been doing shows. I don't know how, but yes, if you don't listen to Super J-Cast, we might have baby run-ins. That's a thing. So
yeah, it was cat run-ins before. The cat run-ins are now finished, and they've evolved to baby run-ins. So apologies in advance.
Yeah, if you hear a screaming baby. But other than being locked in a hotel room, what's been going on?
Things are all right here, actually. Just Thailand is one of the places where it hasn't hit so badly, and they're starting to ease up a bit. So I can do things like go to the park, go get coffee, go to restaurants. So with some distancing restrictions in place, so I can't really complain. It's decent here.
Also, restaurants are open?
Yeah, me and Maddie went for sushi a couple of days ago. You're not allowed to sit.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You can't sit next to someone, and you can't sit opposite them. You can sit diagonally from them. That's the restriction.
That's actually kind of smart.
Yeah. Although it doesn't really make sense when it's with my wife and my daughter, like I'm sleeping with. So
that's true. But yeah, there's no restaurants open here. I've noticed some of them have been, like, more of them have been reopening for delivery. It's funny you mentioned sushi. We can finally order Japanese food here in the Bronx after like 2 months of not being able to order it. Like all the Japanese and Chinese places closed because I think people are racist and didn't want to where and ordering from. But yeah, so I'm like, being a fucking dipshit weeaboo, I'm sitting here dying. I'm like, can someone just please deliver tempura to me or something? And finally, like, a couple Japanese places started. Like, the Chinese places came back first, I'd say like 2 weeks ago. And then finally some Japanese places have come back this week. And then, like, the first time I had tempura again, I was so happy. I was like, thank you, God. But yeah, we finally got sushi delivered again, so that was good. I mean, it's not cheap, so you can't do it can't do it every day, but I definitely missed all that stuff. So but yeah, I don't know if they're like ramping up because they assume we're gonna have like the restaurant dine-in seating with restrictions in like next month, maybe. Maybe it makes more sense to, like, start offering the delivery and takeout now so you're ready. I don't know, because it seems like a lot of stuff is reopening. So I guess we'll see. I don't know. We're all kind of just like, who knows what will happen, like any guesses are just guesses. So like when I see people be like, oh, everything's done until 2022, I'm like, okay, you don't know that. You're just,
it's absolutely point. every week on Super J-Cast, Dane was like, "Oh, so when do you think New Japan will be back?" I'm like, I don't know. It's pointless. It's a waste of time me guessing. I don't know. So just don't worry about it.
I mean, all these Japanese wrestling companies, I think, are clearly preparing for like some kind of social distance crowds. Like I know Shinshiro Takagi from DDT put out that image of like, a venue with like every other seat available. So maybe I definitely could see a universe where they try something like that, by the fall in Japan. Because I mean, if you've been keeping track, the virus is like declining there. I know they just had like 23 cases in Tokyo or something, which is, they were in the 3 digits every day before that. So,
I'm glad you moved on from ROH ticket sales to different sort of data analytics.
But yeah, I mean, like I think they're gonna lift the state of emergency on May 31st when they extended it to, and then we'll see like what like the phase reopenings look like. I mean, anyone expecting like New Japan to be able to run a full Osaka-jo Hall for Dominion is crazy. I think there's like a slight chance they might be able to run like a 25 or 50% Osaka-jo Hall, but I kind of think that date is probably too soon. But maybe they can come back in July or August. That wouldn't really surprise me. And then in the meantime, do they finally do something empty arena? I think that's possible. Where do you fit on that? Do you want them to do empty arena at this point? Because I kind of want them to just stay gone until they can run shows in front of fans again.
Yeah, I don't want empty arena either. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. I don't mind having this break, to be honest. I've said on Twitter, it's given me a chance to fill in some of the gaps in my historical knowledge in New Japan. There's so much stuff on NJPW World that I'll never get through it all in my lifetime. So it's just good to hit the pause button and go through some of that stuff. And then when it comes back, I want it to be proper, like maybe not necessarily like full arena, like capacity shows, but I would settle for, partially filled arenas. Just there's got to be some sort of crowd because the empty arena stuff does nothing for me.
Yeah. I mean, I like some of the empty arena stuff in Japan has been good. Like, definitely a lot better than the US stuff, but I don't know. It's still very. I have to be in a mood for it. Like it's nothing where I'm like, even with promotions I really like DDT or All Japan or Noah or whatever, I'm still like, well, do I feel like sitting through this or am I? Like I have to hype myself up for it,
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. I think at this point, like New Japan's held out for so long at this point that every time they put those little teases of like, oh, we're thinking about doing empty arena, I'm like, just fucking wait at this point. Like, what is the difference? But maybe they just feel like they have to do something.
Yeah, that's it. I just want escapism at this point, which is why I'm like immersing myself in like TV shows and movies and books and things like that are going to make me forget the shit that's going on.
Did you ever play like the Yakuza games? Is that something you play? I know you're a Shenmue guy.
No, I never played them. People keep telling me to play them, and I would love to play them, but unfortunately, my PS4 is in a country that I may no longer ever be allowed to go back to. So,
my friend, I guess you're not enough of a gamer. My friend, it doesn't matter what his name is. My friend who was living in Japan and moved back to America, he had to come back here so fucking fast. He left his PS4 there, and he just went out and bought a new one. He's like, I am not waiting until this fucking pandemic is over to play video games. I'm just gonna buy a new PS4. And I was like, okay.
Damon's tried to get like listeners to the Super J-Cast to crowdfund me getting a new PS4, but I can't justify that.
Yeah, well, I've been playing through Yakuza 0. That's why I asked. I never played the Yakuza series before, but the Yakuza 0 is so fucking good. But
I know that I would love it. It sounds like extremely my jam.
Yeah. The other thing we can talk about for wrestling, I know you watched all of High Score Girl, I think on my recommendation, right? I think
that's correct. Yep.
So, first of all, what do you think? What do you think of High Score Girl?
Well, I just that kind of smoky, grimy arcades of the 90s. That's my childhood, basically, because every time I would go on holiday with my parents, it's a very British thing. Like in these seaside towns, you'd have amusement arcades lining the seafront, the promenade. So,
well, you do. Well, we have that in America too.
Okay, so
yeah,
maybe it's just a universal thing, I guess. But as a kid, I would just love to go in there. I wouldn't want to play anything because if I put any money in, I would like get beaten straight away and lose my money and feel terrible. But I used to like watching other people play. I'd even watch it on the attract mode. So just hanging around arcades, I love it. And so this kind of stuff, like the 90s retro arcade game aesthetic, is just clarion call to someone like me. And also the fact that it's based around Street Fighter 2, which is a game Like when I was a kid, my parents bought me a Super Nintendo with one game. It was Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and I played it so much that I got blisters on my thumbs from doing the Hadouken motion, the quarter circle forward on the D-pad. So completely fucked up my thumbs, and I just got obsessed with it. Just that one game. I only had one game, but I just went a bit crazy over it. And my parents ended up giving away my Super Nintendo to someone else. So I haven't quite forgiven them for that yet. But Street Fighter 2. Big part of my childhood. So
wait, they gave away your Super Nintendo?
Yeah, because I played it too much. Where's the logic in that, huh?
That's some fucking brutal parenting. Jesus.
Right. So anyway, watching this thing where the whole thing is basically centered around playing Street Fighter 2. Yeah, I love that. It's definitely my kind of thing. And also, I just think it's a really good series that happens to be an anime that happens to be about video games. I think like the story and the characters all sort of hold up within their own right without having to appeal to me through the conduit of video games. That sort of got me into it, but I just think it's a really good series anyway.
Right. And, like the central romance is like really engaging anyway. And, I've watched it twice now because I watched it once by myself. And then like almost immediately I watched the whole thing again with Nicole, my girlfriend, when I convinced her to watch it with me. And there was stuff I didn't notice the first time and stuff that I felt differently about the first time. Nicole really hated Hidaka. So that like almost rubbed off on me, I think. And I was watching because I liked Hidaka the first time I watched, but then like listening to Nicole complain about this girl the entire time.
Wait, why did she hate her so much?
She was like, if Hidaka was a guy, we would all fucking like talk shit about him, basically, because like, this boy is nice to her, and like this boy is like nice to her and plays games with her, wants to be her friend, but in no time does he show any romantic interest. And he makes it clear a few times that he does not want to date this girl, and she like just will not let it go, and like tries to fucking force him by beating him in a video game. And I guess I'm spoiling the whole series here, but but like the point is she's very, very persistent, and Nicole's whole point, which I didn't get watching it as a assigned male at birth person. Nicole, as a woman, was just like, if a man did this to me, I would fucking like want to kill him. And she's like, I feel like we're giving her people are giving her a pass because she's a girl. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting perspective.
But what's the main character's name again?
That's a good question, because I can remember Hidaka and I can remember I don't know what they mean.
Okay, well anyway, my point is going to be main character guy, whatever his name is. I hope you're searching that in the background. He doesn't show romantic interest towards anyone. And that's like that's my one issue.
Well, that's true. So the main character is Haruo Yaguchi. I don't know how we forgot that, but yeah, okay. I mean, he doesn't show romantic interest to anyone, but I feel like he does eventually get to a point where it becomes a difference of not showing romantic interest to actively not liking Hidaka. Hidaka makes it's not like Hidaka doesn't understand this. I mean, at one point she says, I think when she's setting up the video game thing, she says like, I know that this is a one-way interest. So I don't know. I just think the second time I watched it, especially, it came off like I get that you like this guy a lot, but like he's not into you. I don't know what to tell you. You clearly understand that he's into Ono. Like that's it. Like he loves Akira, even if he doesn't know it yet. And she clearly gets this. So I don't know. At some points, like the stuff with like where she's trying to get him into like literally just trying to get him into bed is just like you're coming off a little desperate, lady. I don't know what to tell you. Like I get Nicole's point that like if she was a guy and being this like not just persistent, but like I don't know, over the top persistent or something, like we would probably have a different opinion. So
yeah. Well, that was my one issue with this program. According to you, this is some like wider phenomenon with anime. Like the scene towards the end of season 2. Okay, spoilers. If you haven't seen it and you want to watch it, maybe skip forward a bit. But he's supposed to be 16, 17 at the time, and they're in a hotel room sharing a bed together. And I don't want to speak for everyone, but when I was that age, I was an absolute horn dog. So the fact that he's like lying in bed with this girl that he's really into, and he's only thinking about video games.
Yeah, he's like, we have to go to sleep. We have a Street Fighter 2 tournament tomorrow.
Right.
And it's like, okay.
I could totally buy him being like scared in that situation. Like, oh, I really like this girl. I'm scared to do anything because I don't want to, disappoint her or make a fool of myself or whatever. But there's the fact that he's just thinking, oh, we've got to get sleep because we've got this big Super Street Fighter tournament the next day. I was like, come on, man.
Yeah, I don't know. He's very, like I said, it is kind of an anime trope, and I assume this must be like there must be people in Japan into this because it comes up over and over again. Where you have like the teenage to young adult guy who, like, the girls want him, but he doesn't show any interest in that, and that trope comes up over and over and over again. So, it's definitely not something they invented here. But yeah, I mean, he's just basically, he's too pure for this world. He only cares about the video games, and he doesn't care about anything except beating her in this video game. And yeah, it's very. I mean, I don't think it's. I think his character is very consistent. I don't think it's like badly written, but I get why if you watch it, you might be like, "What the fuck? Like, why are you? Like, why? What kid? Why don't you like this girl?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a nerdy teenager obsessed with video games, and I did not have beautiful women throwing themselves at me like this character does. So, no points for realism, but an enjoyable series nonetheless.
Yeah, but that is kind of cool, and I liked it a lot, and I'm glad you liked it too. And for people listening, if you still want to listen to it after I think spoiled half the series, you can find it on Netflix. I think it was on Netflix for you too, or is that only in America?
Yes, it is on Netflix.
Okay, so Netflix, I think worldwide. Also, like much like the matches we talk about here, you can find them. You can find it illicitly too. So if you're into that. But
John,
anyway.
can you give me another anime recommendation? What should I watch next?
Well, if you like the slice of lifey stuff, which is like what kind of a high score girl is, I can give you two recommendations I really liked recently. One is called Blend S, which is about like a maid cafe kind of thing, but like it's really, really funny. And the other one is Wotokoi, which is like it's about like slightly older people, which is nice for a change because anime is almost always about like teenagers and younger, but these are about like people in their mid-20s at an office, and it's like some kind of Love is Hard for Otaku, and it's basically about like these very awkward nerd people trying to date, it's really funny. So I would highly recommend that one. I think it's a very, very similar vibe to High School Girl, and it's much shorter. I think it's only 11 episodes, but if you don't have Amazon Prime, you'll have to go look for it illegally because it's only on Prime, I think, legally. But it's out there anyway. I mean, pretty much any anime you can find, fan subs up pretty easily, I think, still. So, but yeah, those would be my two recommendations for similar shows, I think.
Okay, I will report back on our end of year New Japan review episode, which will be about 20 minutes long.
The end of so January and February were fucking awesome, and after that, I mean that's really like the really annoying thing about all this shit. It's like I was enjoying January and February like as much as I've ever enjoyed New Japan, and it's like wow, everybody I like was being pushed, not even just like Naito, but like all of Lij and Taichi and Zack were going for the tag titles, and it's like
they fixed everything. Everything was perfect.
Yeah, it's like fail horn. Here comes a fucking virus. But what are you gonna do? I'm sure. Hopefully, I really just want them to fucking pick up where they left off when they come back. Don't fucking skip anything. Give me the Taichi and Zack title challenge. Everyone in Lij has a 2-year title reign. I don't give a fuck. Whatever. If it takes until 2022, then they all get a 4-year title reign. Whatever. But like, pick up where they left off. Don't fucking skip anything. That's my request. But anyway, so let's get into this week's 5 matches. If this is somehow your first time listening to a 5-match episode, the format is pretty simple. My guest picks 2 matches. I pick 2 matches. We definitely talk about those 4. And then we also pick a 3rd match, and those 2 third matches go to a fan vote. And we talk about the winner. That's the 5th match. And we don't talk about the loser. So we'll get to what won and lost when we get to the last match of the evening. But first, we're going to start with Joel's first pick, which was Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit from World Wrestling Entertainment, or I guess at this point, World Wrestling Federation. January 21st, 2001 at the Royal Rumble. This is a ladder match for the Intercontinental title. I guess, Joel, first things first, why did you pick this match? And did you pick it for me specifically, or is there like some kind of history with the match? What's behind this choice?
Yeah, well, I talk a lot of New Japan on the Super J Cast, so I thought I'd try and pick something a bit different and some matches outside of the company. And what I've tried to do is bring you US wrestling gimmick matches done well. So when I was growing up, when I was at school, I missed out on the Attitude Era because I didn't have Sky Sports, which was the channel that showed WWF. But so at school, when I was a young teenager, kids running around in the playground saying "suck it" and doing moves on each other, Stone Cold stunning each other left, right, and center. So I was just like, "What is going on? I want to get involved in this. This sounds kind of cool." And then in the UK, they started showing some WWF pay-per-views on free television on Channel 4, and they showed them live. So this Royal Rumble 2001, I think it was one of the first pay-per-views that they showed on Channel 4. So I'd recorded it on VHS. Hoping that I could watch it unspoiled. And then, of course, I go into school the next day and everyone's talking about how Stone Cold's won the Rumble. So I was like, oh, fuck. But anyway, I thought, sit down and watch the whole thing anyway. So just imagine me as a new fan of wrestling. Like, this was the first show that I ever watched. And, seeing this match, seeing the Intercontinental title looking incredibly prestigious, these two guys trying to kill each other over it. Like, imagine this being the second ever wrestling match that you watch. So, like, for 13-year-old me, this was the coolest shit I've ever seen. Like, how great is Jericho's entrance? And on that point, it just blows my mind that 19 years later, I'll be watching him wrestle the semi-main event at the Tokyo Dome in front of 30,000 people. And the first live wrestling show I actually went to was a Raw show at the O2 Arena in April 2009. And Jericho was the first guy to come out then. So he's always been a fairly prominent guy throughout my wrestling fandom. Maybe I should just stop watching wrestling when he retires. But yeah, that's why I picked this match, because it was the second wrestling match that I ever watched.
That's so fun. Like, one of the fun things about doing this series in general and hearing from other people is like all these points in wrestling that are just random points for me that are like, really important to other people. Like for Jericho Benoit at this point, I guess I'm exactly, well, not 2 years older than you, because you were 13 when this was airing. You're saying,
yeah,
right? I would have been 14, and I would have turned 15 in May. But anyway, but at this point, so we're almost the same age. But at this point, like, I have been a wrestling fan already for like 7 years. So, like, I got started very young because of just my older cousin was really into it. That's why I first got into it when I was a little kid. So, they hooked me very young, and so this show. I mean, I remember Royal Rumble 2001. But it's not like it's something that is some, turning point in my wrestling fan or anything. It's just like, pretty good show that I think I watched on pay-per-view at the time even. But it was a very, it's just funny to think about and be like, oh, this match that was like, yeah, it's a cool ladder match. Yeah, this is a cool show. It was like the entire starting point of the Joel Abraham's wrestling story.
Yeah, I must have watched the show like literally about 100 times on that VHS tape.
Yeah, but yeah, this is the Jericho Benoit feud. I mean, so did you ever go back and watch their stuff in 2000?
Yeah, I've seen some of it. Like, there was a triple threat match with Kurt Angle. Was it best 2 out of 3?
So I have the whole thing written down. But yeah, they basically spent all of 2000 like trading wins and trading this belt, basically, where like Benoit won the belt at WrestleMania 2000 in the 3-0 angle that was also for the European title. Which that is a weird match, by the way, if people listeners haven't seen it, where Angle was European and Intercontinental champion entering it, and they did 2 falls. For some reason, the Intercontinental title fall was first. I guess they wanted to do that because Benoit, the heel, was going to win the Intercontinental, and Jericho, the face, was going to win the European. But like it just felt really anticlimactic to do the more important belt that people actually cared about first, and then the dumb belt that no one cared about second. It was very weird.
Excuse me, as a European, I'm feeling very disrespected right now.
I'm sorry, but you should take up your concerns with the WWF, because they sure never give a fuck about that belt. Fucking Shane McMahon held it for like 8 months without fucking defending it or whatever, retired it, and then I think Midian like took it out of a bag or something. I mean, it was a very stupid title. But
no,
yeah,
is it any less prestigious than any of the NXT UK titles?
I guess not. No, they just really hate your country, Joel. I hate to tell you.
I hate my country as well. So,
as a fellow country hater, I can understand. But yeah, so then they had a match at Backlash where he retained by DQ. I guess Jericho won it on SmackDown in early May, and then Benoit won it back 6 days later at Raw. And then they had a submission match at Judgment Day where Benoit retained, and that was kind of like the end for now. And they kind of went off and did their own thing for a few months. But then I know Benoit feuded with The Rock, and Jericho feuded with Triple H. But then they got back together at SummerSlam without the belt this time because at this point I think it was on like Val Venus or something. And it was like a 2 out of 3 falls match at SummerSlam 2000. And then this is basically like the end point of this feud now. Benoit won the belt back from Billy Gunn at Armageddon 2000 a month earlier, which is supposedly like a famous match in that, like, I guess at the time the WWF would use Chris Benoit as like a measuring stick of wrestlers because it's like, okay, you should be able to have a good match with Chris Benoit. I mean, whatever else he did as a person, he was an incredibly good professional wrestler. And it really was not difficult to have a good match with him. And Billy Gunn failed the Chris Benoit test is the long and short of it. So his push as the one Billy Gunn came to an end after he lost that match to Benoit.
He failed the Hiroshi Tanahashi test as well.
And that set up this ladder match. Basically, the final blow off to the feud. After this, like, I know they were in like a 4-way the following month, but then they would be like allies pretty soon. Like they would team up together after WrestleMania 17, which I remember as a kid absolutely loving that. It's like these two that killed each other and now, like, you know, teaming up against their common enemies of William Regal and Kurt Angle. Like that stuff was really fun. But you know, even going back, I watched some of it recently and like the Raws and SmackDowns, and that was one of the more natural. Like sometimes the two rivals become like the two rivals turning into teammates thing is done so often by WWE now that like I think people are really sick of it and really hate it. And it's usually like completely nonsense. Like I remember that when I forget what I think it's like Cesaro and Sheamus.
Best of 7, wasn't it?
Huh?
It was a best of 7 series.
Yeah, and then it ends, and like I think on the last night of it, right? Like some GM comes out and is like, "So you guys are going to team now," and they're like fucking cool with this. They're like cool with this immediately. And I'm like, "You guys are trying to kill each other. What are you talking about?" Whereas with Benoit and Jericho, at least they were apart for a while before they have this blow off. I guess they're in a 4-way together or something at No Way Out, but then after that, you know, they both go off on their separate feuds for a few months. And then by the time they come back together and as teammates, it makes total sense because, like, you know, they're up against this commissioner, William Regal, who's being a complete asshole to both of them. And they just kind of like, you know, I don't know, like the way they booked it was actually very good. So a rare
the 2-man power trip as well. They were against Austin and Triple H.
Eventually they would go up against Austin and Triple H. But the thing that made them come together was like William Regal took an interest in like was already tormenting Jericho, and then he started tormenting Benoit too because he was allies with Kurt Angle, and they just kind of came together like fuck this guy, and it did feel natural and it worked. So like I don't know, it was like watching that stuff back. That has to be like one of the better book times they ever did the rivals becoming partners thing. So a rare praise for World Wrestling Entertainment booking on this podcast, but that was good.
Yeah.
As far as his match, though, this match is awesome. I mean, you can talk about it. What do you love about this match?
Well, let me preface this by saying I generally hate ladder matches like that.
They fucking suck.
I know, right? That takeover 6-man, the North American title match, hated that. The 3-way at MSG for the ROH New Japan show, I was bored out of my mind.
People love that match, like the Ring of Honor, or at least say, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." I wanted to fucking like, I don't know, like stab myself to escape it. It was so fucking long and terrible. And Nicole went with me to that show, and she looked over at me like she's like, "When is this going to end?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's going forever, and it's awful." I totally agree with you. First of all, I mean, ladder matches are one thing, and you know, like maybe around this time we just weren't all burnt out on them yet. But I never want to see another ladder match again. I fucking can't stand them anymore.
Yeah, I definitely think they sort of run out of creative ways of doing them. And I mean, this is my favorite ladder match. Probably skewed my appreciation of them henceforth, given that it was the first one that I watched. And in my opinion, it's basically flawless. Like it feels like two guys having a fight, and the ladder is a logical part of that fight rather than a series of contrived ladder stunts with no connective tissue, which I think is what modern ladder matches feel like to me. Like they're using the turnbuckles, the stairs, the ropes, chairs, and they'll use the ladder if it's there and it's convenient and it makes sense, and that it gives the whole match like an air of authenticity, and also keeps you on your toes as a viewer because the ladder might get set up and then you forget about it because something else is going on, and then there'll be a big spot where the ladder comes back into play where you're like, oh shit, the ladder, I forgot about the ladder. And you know, in this match, the people are even starting to boo and get disgruntled the first time Benoit climbs the ladder. It was only about 5 minutes in. Like they actually think there's a chance he's going to win, and I love that. And it's just like almost bizarre hearing a hot crowd for this company. But I guess we need to talk about that Tope chair shot. Because
before we do that, I want to totally agree with your point. I think why this match works and why all the other ladder matches don't is because, like you said, they have a fucking wrestling match and the ladder is involved. I feel like every ladder match now is just, ladder. Like we set up 500 ladders. It's usually multiple people all doing like a million dives off of them. They're not having a wrestling match anymore, right? They're just, doing ladder spots. And it's like it's the same thing as what I talked about a few weeks ago with like the Toryumon 3-way multi-man tag, which is like, it's awesome the first time you see it, but like you can only see the exact same multi-man Toryumon Dragon Gate spots before they're just boring. And like, someone needs to do this lap. Someone needs to watch this fucking match, have two wrestlers face each other, not six of them, and do this fucking match. Maybe leave out the Tope chair shot, but like, other than that, like, there's nothing in this match that's as dangerous as like, other than that Tope chair shot, probably. There are way more dangerous spots in some of these modern ladder matches. So if you go back and do this match, have an actual fucking wrestling match again that involves a ladder instead of just nothing but ladder spots, I think you can maybe revitalize this match type. But yeah, I mean, it's the most played out. Like I never roll my eyes harder than when there's a ladder match, basically. Like it's just like, please, I don't want to see any more ladder matches. But yeah, go ahead. The Tope chair spot. It's that was hard to watch given how Mr. Benoit's life ended.
Yeah, it's one of the most wince-inducing moves in wrestling history, if you ask me. And it's so unexpected. Like the chair just comes out of nowhere. The sound cracks through the whole arena. It's genuinely shocking. But aside from that, there are some really good moments where something elaborate is set up and you think you know what's going to happen, but then it's subverted. Like there's a bit where Jericho's tipping the ladder towards Benoit when he's lying across the barricade. So I think in these kind of matches, it's really important to mix it up with spots that don't land as much as those that do, which again is a facet that's been lost in these modern ladder matches where you can see all the spots coming a mile away. And again, later on in the match, there's a bit where you think it's going to be a Jericho superplex from the top of the ladder, but it turns out to be a diving headbutt spot for Benoit, which he misses too. So it's so good. And there's a consistent story throughout this with Benoit targeting Jericho's shoulder. And I think some of the best ladder matches have also been body part matches, especially when you think of the first Money in the Bank ladder match where Benoit did an amazing job selling his arm. And like everything Benoit does in this match centers around him trying to fuck up Chris Jericho's shoulder as much as he can, like rather than set up some fancy gifable ladder sculptures for someone to inevitably fall through. And there are some terrific spots in this match, but none of them feel contrived like that. They feel organic. Like Benoit and Jericho happen to be having a struggle at this particular area over the ladder, which naturally leads to the ladder falling over or smacking them in the face in a way that doesn't ruin your suspension of disbelief. And there's a bit near the end where Jericho locks in a kind of walls of Jericho and Benoit's bent backwards over the top of the ladder, and it toes that line, but it's the kind of spot that would probably end a modern ladder match. But Benoit, he falls off, he lands next to the ladder, and it makes complete sense that he just stick up a leg and push the ladder over, even though he's just been put through the ringer. So yeah, like I said, all these spots feel like the wrestlers thinking on their feet, they're getting desperate, like, oh, I've got about 3 seconds before he gets up, I'm going to try this, even though most of the time it doesn't work, like Jericho trying to pin Benoit under the ladder. And then it's really satisfying when it all goes arse over tit and lends more drama, more uncertainty to the finish when you're wondering, is Benoit going to make it back to the ring in time to stop Jericho? So everything looks real and painful and nasty. The pacing spot on. It's the perfect ladder match for me.
So the only thing I said like a spot that no one should ever recreate. There's another one. Please don't ever do a diving headbutt off the top of a ladder and miss again, because that looked like it sucked too. Speaking of concussion city here. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sick spots in this match, and it's a really awesome match. The only thing that takes it down for me is the finish, which is really underwhelming, I think, after all this ridiculous shit. Like, Jericho, like, pushes the ladder over. Benoit kind of, like, bounces on the top rope and then falls to the floor. And Jericho sets up the ladder. And Benoit, the camera just shouldn't have shown him, because, like, you can clearly see that he's fine and that, like, he doesn't do it. He, like, weirdly does a very bad job at selling that he can't get back in the ring. Like, he climbs up and, like, he, like, falls back down, but, like, he looks like he's fine. Like, I don't know how to describe this for the listener at home to really explain it, but, like, you know what it reminds me of? Did you ever see that terrible TNA Reverse Battle Royal?
No.
Where, like, the first step of it was for everyone to get in the ring, so people had to pretend it was really hard to get in the ring when it's like you said to get in the ring. I mean, there was really no one stopping you most of the time. That's what it reminded me of. Like, Benoit clearly could get back up. He was clearly fine. He wasn't doing a good job at all. Like, he should have just stayed down. He would, like, get up and, like, fall back down and get up and like act like he was, like, in quicksand or something. It looked really awful. And it was, like, the only thing in this match that looked bad. But it looked so bad that I took off like a half a star. Like, I really hate the finish. So I went 4.5. But it's still a ridiculous bump fest that, like, is really, really good. But I just had to bring that up. The finish really annoys me after all the crazy shit they did.
That's a good point, actually, because after the match finishes and Jericho's celebrating with the belt, this is like seconds after he's taken it down. Benoit's standing on the outsides and he's just looking a bit tired and pissed off. Like, he's not selling the effects of the absolute war he's been through. He's just I can't believe I lost that.
Yeah, I mean, they should have come with a better finish. That's a big critique. If it has a finish that makes more sense, it doesn't look as bad. It's probably a 5-star match, but that's pretty much. I just really, really hated that finish. But there you go. Other than that, awesome match. So let's go to my first pick, which was Shinsuke Nakamura versus Hiroki Goto from New Japan on April 4th, 2010. I wanted to pick some New Japan matches that I thought you may not have seen. And, later on you told me you've seen almost no Nakamura, so that worked out really well. But yeah, so I thought, and plus I just absolutely adore this match. But this is for the IWGP Heavyweight title at the New Dimension show at Korakuen Hall. So Goto and Nakamura, they already had a long history at this point. Goto had gone on an excursion in 2006. He had been like a junior heavyweight up until then, believe it or not. I know that seems hard to believe now, but he was a junior in the CTU heel faction, which was like Liger, Gato, Jado.
We spoke about this on the Super J cast, that most Japanese wrestlers lose weight when they're in Mexico because of the food, but he just
that's true.
Back as a heavyweight.
Yeah, that's right. And he stopped in TNA and then did an extended time in Mexico, like you said. He returned to New Japan in 2007. He joined up with Shinsuke Nakamura's RISE unit, which was an acronym for Real International Super Elite. It was basically the new unit that formed out of Black, which had been Masahiro Chono's unit with that Nakamura was in, along with like Milano and Giant Bernard and a bunch of people that were in it. And they were the heel unit, I guess. I don't remember exactly when GBH started, because whenever GBH started, they took over the mantle as a real heel unit. So, Black and then Rise were sort of like in the same spot that LIJ is in now, and that Chaos was in for a while, where like they're not heels because every time they fight the real heels of GBH. They were the baby faces, but they were still more heelish than the main army, So that was Rise's position in 2007. But yeah, so that would kind of like at the same time they were in this unit together, though, they already had like a little rivalry brewing where they went, Goto beat Nakamura in the 2008 G1, which was kind of a big upset at the time, and then he would go on to win that G1. That was even a really, really shocking G1 win at the time. And, he would go on to lose his IWGP title shot against Keiji Muto, which happened at an All Japan show a month later for some reason. One of the weirdest G1 title shots, I guess. But then Goto followed that up. He beat Nakamura again in the 2009 New Japan Cup in March. And that was the second round, and he'd go on to win that too. And then, of course, he'd lose his IWGP title shot against Tanahashi. A month after that, in 2009, Nakamura turned heel in that match with Togi Makabe. It's kind of a famous match where Toriano turns on Makabe, and Toriano, of course, been in GBH, and they were like the most violent players. And then eventually all of GBH sided with Nakamura, except for, of course, Tomoaki Honma. And that's why, if you're ever wondering why GBH is two people all this time, Makabe and Honma, that's why. But yeah, so they would form Chaos, which was the top heel stable in New Japan for many years before their feud with Suzuki-gun, after that formed, kind of turned them into that like true neutral unit. And then they were, the baby faces against Suzuki-gun and Bullet Club. And then eventually they were just baby faces completely. And now they're just, they basically don't exist. I mean, they team with the main army so often, there's really no reason for them to exist. But there you go. So Rise came to like a quiet end, and Goto rejoined the Seki-gun. And this basically turned Nakamura and Goto from like friendly rivals into far more bitter rivals. And that's kind of how they would stay for the rest of Nakamura's New Japan career. And then he beat Goto finally in the 2009 G1, where he would go on to lose in the finals to Makabe. But then he beat Makabe in late 2009 to win the vacant IWGP Heavyweight title after Tanahashi, he fractured his eye socket is what happened. So that sounds brutal. But thankfully he was able to come back from that. So all that leads us to here. Goto wins the New Japan Cup for the second straight year in March 2010, and he beat Togi Makabe actually in the finals. So you can see these dudes were all like kind of in the mix at this point. And this title shot against Nakamura at Korakuen was his big reward. This is already his fourth shot at the title. So it's 2010. There's already going to be his fourth failed title challenge. I mentioned the ones he got for winning the last New Japan Cup in the G1. He also failed to beat Tanahashi in 2007. As we stand right now, he's had 8 title shots and lost every single one of them. But I don't think I totally didn't realize this until I looked it up. He hasn't challenged for the IWGP Heavyweight title since he lost to Okada at New Beginning in Osaka in 2016. So it's been 4+ years. It's kind of crazy. But basically, once he joined Chaos after he lost that Okada match, he's never challenged for the title again. So I don't know if that's a good career move on his part, but there you go. But yeah, so first, I guess as far as the match goes, Joel, what do you think of Goto and Nakamura?
All right, first of all, I'll give a shout out to my friend Manabu, who's been filling me in with a lot of the historical stuff, a lot of the stuff you've mentioned there. And also, I think it's worth mentioning that it's kind of unusual to have an IWGP title match at Korakuen, and it's only happened 8 times and changed hands once.
It happened a lot in this era, though, I think. I think there's a couple famous ones with Nagata. There's a big one with Nakanishi, and in 2012 there's Okada and Naito, and that's the final one, I think, in March or April 2012. The issue was they were not running a big show for the spring at this point, so I think Invasion Attack started in 2013. So Invasion Attack basically replaced this weird spring Korakuen where they would have a title match. So
yeah, well, I mean, back to the match. I liked it. I thought it was good, but I've got 2 problems with it, right? The first problem we've got here is that this is pre-excursion Nakamura. So he comes out to Subconscious with the normal hair and the normal outfit, and he's walking normally. You're like, oh, is this Nakamura? And, most of us know his backstory, that he entered New Japan in 2002 with same class as Taguchi, Yoshitatsu. He didn't go through the traditional young lion phase, training MMA, so maybe not as well-rounded as other wrestlers. Some would say that he was pushed too much too soon, but he does in this match have his really cool arsenal of knee-based attacks, which I believe he picked up after his first fight, his MMA fight with Alexei Ignashov, when he was knocked out. He tried to shoot in for a takedown and got kneed in the face, which he actually does in this match to Goto, which I thought was pretty cool. And I think he debuted the Bomaye in the G1 against Sugiura, so he's got all his kicks and his knees, and that's really good. And 90% of this match is Nakamura kicking and kneeing Goto with his nice purple knickers. But that brings me on to the second issue here, which is Hiroki Goto himself, because Damon and I talked about his title match with Tanahashi at Sumo Hall in 2007 last week, which is arguably his best match. And I think in that match, Goto shows the most diverse moveset there, at least. But watching this match, like back to back with the 2007 Tanahashi match, it looks like Goto's actively regressed. Like his moves are less interesting. He's showing less passion. There's no real levels to the performance. Maybe it's not his fault, because if you look at his recent career history at this point, we had that Nakamura Goto against Misawa Sugiura match at the Dome, Wrestle Kingdom 3. So at that time, Goto's still protected. Then he lost to Sugiura at Dominion. And I hear New Japan fans were really disappointed at that one. And then he lost to Sugiura again at the G1 in Sumo Hall. And after that, in 2010, January 4, Tokyo Dome, Wrestle Kingdom 4, he lost to Sugiura again. So at that point, his credibility is kind of in the toilet. And those 3 failed title shots up to the point that you mentioned. And he does have his consecutive New Japan cups. We'll give him that. But absolutely nobody thought that he would beat Nakamura in this match from what I gathered. And I can see that in his eyes here, John. Like, his spirit has already been crushed. He's settled in his role.
The crowd's still really behind him, though, which is kind of interesting. Like, you'd think after all that, the crowd would not care, but they were like really into him, and they wanted him. Like, they were rooting him on pretty passionately.
Yeah, I hear that, and you're not wrong. But maybe this is just me viewing Goto with 2020 Goto eyes. Like, I feel he's settled into his role as an upper mid-card gatekeeper at this point. You know, like the jobber to the stars, and him getting his head kicked in for 20 minutes to make Nakamura look good. Says it all.
I think it's a little early to say he settled. I think where he settles in is really when Okada beats him like 50 times in a row or whatever.
Yeah, when he does body paint, waterfall shit. That was the last straw, wasn't it?
I don't even... Yeah, that was the last straw. I even think it was before that when he just lost, like... I don't know. He was like... I feel like there was like 2 straight Okada reigns where he was like the sacrificial first challenger. At that point, it felt like, okay, well, this guy's never gonna fucking do anything. He just gets his ass kicked every time Okada wins the belt. But yeah, you know, at this point, I feel like he still had, like, there was still hope there, even though like you went over some of the booking issues with him. But like the crowd was still really behind him here, and you know, I guess we view him getting his ass kicked differently, but like. The fact that he takes such a beating from Nakamura and then like still fires back up for every time and just keeps coming back, I thought was like one of the things that makes the match really awesome. And you know, the crowd being super behind him as you know he keeps fucking taking these knees and these, you know, Nakamura is like destroying him with these knees and these kicks, but Goto like, you know, like just fires up with these really hard lariats. And there's like a great moment where like even really early on where like he really has enough of Shinsuke's shit after Shinsuke like steps on his face and, you know, like was pushing him to the ropes of the headlock. He just drops him on his head with this backdrop, and you know, the crowd like roars. Like I thought that really set up the entire story of the match where like, you know, Nakamura is a complete dick to him and beats the shit out of him, but every time Goto just keeps getting back up and keeps firing back up, and the crowd just gets more and more behind him every time he does. But yeah, you know, it starts out with like the rolling around the mat stuff that I personally find entertaining, but I get that others don't. But I always thought Nakamura, one of his strengths was making his mat wrestling / like feeling out periods like fast and exciting, which is something I think Okada kind of struggles at nowadays. You know, and there's like a lot of really cool stuff here. Nakamura, like he turns a pinfall attempt from Goto after a top rope elbow drop into a triangle armbar with like this really smooth movement that was awesome. You know, Shinsuke, I thought he sold really well here, which was I thought always a really underrated aspect of his game when he had to sell. Like Goto at one point does like a top rope neck breaker, and Shinsuke sells it like his neck is broken. And then like the stretch run though is where this match goes from like already awesome to just being outstanding for me. We're like, you know, Goto, he blocks the Bamaye, he turns it into Ushigoroshi. The crowd is like losing their minds for this, and you know, it only gets 2. There's like this awesome like armbar reversal spot where Nakamura tries to get the cross arm breaker, which was like he was finishing matches with at that point, and Goto like turns it into this like reverse, not quite a Fujiwara armbar, more like a stretch, but it was really good reversal, and Nakamura makes the ropes, and then they go into this slap battle. Goto does a standing lariat where Nicole was sitting next to me and was like, I thought he killed him. I mean, like it looked one of the more brutal standing lariats I ever see, after they also were like doing these straight punches and this Goto headbutt. I watched that whole sequence like 6 times, and Nakamura's like mouth guard goes flying off that lariat. It's so awesome. But then Nakamura, he counters a Goto sliding lariat attempt with a really fast counter knee, basically, which looked awesome and, you know, looked really, really smooth and natural natural, and he finally hits another bombing 8 for the pin, which you can see. You know how behind Goto was? That deflates the crowd when Nakamura wins. Like, there's not a big reaction for that win. It's like almost like a Dragon Gate title defense for like they really did not want the heel to win, and like the crowd does not. It's not a reaction you hear often in New Japan, but the crowd was not happy when Nakamura retained. So they were really behind Goto. But I can already tell that you don't love this match nearly as much as I do, but I adore this match. It's a really interesting snapshot to me of like a New Japan in transition where, they still have a lot of these strong style stuff, like the, vaguely amateurish like amateur wrestling, not like amateur, like insult, like the amateur wrestling-esque mat wrestling to start, the emphasis on arm bars, but it really still packs in like a hell of a closing stretch that's much more like what would go on to be like the signature New Japan style, but without approaching maybe these silly levels of like, the counter dancing or anything. So I love this match. I have 4 3/4. It's one of my favorites for both men.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I thought it was a very good match, but just, maybe the fact that I thought there was no chance Goto was going to win, that somewhat compromised the dramatic integrity of the match for me.
Well, do you not do star ratings? I don't remember.
If I had to put a star rating on this, maybe 3 3/4, 4 stars, around that.
Or a full star apart. Wow. And then afterwards, Makabe comes out and lays out Nakamura lariat and tells him to fuck off, which is funny. And he would actually take the title off him for the first and only time of his career a month later at Wrestling Dontaku, thus ending amazingly Shinsuke Nakamura's final IWGP title reign. So, I mean, it's crazy that this is his third and last reign in 2010 when he's here for 6 more years. So,
do you think he would have got it again had he not left?
Oh yeah. Eventually, I think. I think they were setting it up, but we'll talk about that when we get to the other Nakamura match, because there's interesting stuff there, I think. Okay, so your second pick, Aztec Warfare 2, Lucha Underground, December 12th, 2015, from their second season. This is where I can tell you I've never seen a single second of Lucha Underground before. I never watched the program at all. This is my first exposure to Lucha Underground. All I can do is tell you the match participants, so let me do that really quickly. There's a lot. It's Phoenix, it's for the Lucha Underground title. He's the champion. So it's Phoenix, Rey Mysterio Jr., Joey Ryan, Jack Evans, Chavo Guerrero Jr., Johnny Mundo, Mil Muertes, Texano, I'm mispronouncing all these, I'm sure, Prince Puma, Drago, Cage, who's Brian Cage, Aerostar, Marty Martinez, King Cuerno, PJ Black, Argidas, the Mac, Willie Mack, Dragon Azteca Jr., Taya Valkyrie, the monster Matenza Cueto, we'll get to who that is later, and Masquerita Sagrada. So, I guess, Joel, tee this up for me. Why'd you pick it? And then I'll tell you what I think of it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it might surprise you to learn that I was a big Lucha Underground fan back in the day. I lost interest around season 3, but I thought for the first 2 seasons, it was tremendous fun. I like the intimate, grimy aesthetic, and it's got those campy, tongue-in-cheek, like Rob Rod backstage vignettes, and what I thought was some pretty great wrestling. It's kind of like what things like the Boneyard match thinks it is, but it isn't. And I nearly picked Phoenix versus Mil Muertes, the Grave Consequences match from season 1, because I think that's the best bell-to-bell match in the show's history. But I couldn't resist Aztec Warfare because I'm a huge fan of Rumble-style matches anyway. I absolutely love this match at the time, and I also think it's interesting to look at from a where are they now perspective to see this weird mix of wrestlers from all different promotions now and see how the landscape of US wrestling's changed over the last 4 to 5 years.
Okay, so here's where I'm gonna disappoint you, Joel. I did not like this at all. It was like something about being dropped into this promotion, I guess, right in the middle of it, and not having any idea what was going on. It didn't work for me at all. I guess it was a standalone match. There was some cool flippy shit, which is cool and stuff, but it felt like it went on forever, and I don't know. We'll get to the individual parts, but as far as the thing as a whole, it just mostly it dragged for me. I don't know. It just was very I was like, who are these people? What is going on? Why is Joey Ryan handcuffing himself? Who is this random man trying to give him a business card? There's just so much here where I felt maybe this was great and made sense if you were watching the show all this time, but none of it made any sense to me. And the announcers, I think the announcers need to do a better job explaining what the fuck was going on. It felt like they basically assumed that anyone watching was watching every week, which, maybe I'm like cursing them based on what WWE does, but I'm not saying you have to treat every fucking viewer like they've never seen your show or wrestling in general, every time, but a little bit of backstory would be nice. Like, I feel like there's a happy medium there where like they explain, that's right, this guy's doing this because of this. Like, just like a line or two about some of these people would have really helped, where it just felt like, okay, here's another person. I don't know what their deal is, but sure. Why is this person doing this? I don't understand. It was very like, so that there was a level to it that I just felt like, okay, I can't really enjoy this on the same level I'm sure Joel enjoyed this, because I had no clue what's going on. But like I said, there were still some impressive looking spots and stuff. It took me a little bit even to figure out what the rules were, because they didn't even say that at the start of the match. They do, but I figured out that it was just pinfalls and not over the top rope for a Royal Rumble. But yeah, that's my general feeling on it. It wasn't a super enjoyable watch.
Yeah, that's a fair criticism. I mean, I obviously enjoyed this because I was watching the product at the time and know all the little storylines going into this. So, let's do the deep dive then. I mean, first of all, Melissa Santos. What do you think of when you look at her? Because for me, the first thing that springs to mind, unfortunately, I mean, she's a great announcer, is the moment when she was talking about Brian Cage's yummy penis on Twitter. I can't get that out of my head, unfortunately. But
I don't even know what you're talking about. So
what? Okay, well, it was a big back in the day. Trust me. I think it was when I first joined Voices of Wrestling, so maybe that's stuck in my head. Anyway, so the guy who was handing out cards, that's Famous B. He was trying to collect new clients. So he was trying to recruit people for this match. So, Phoenix, he's like the newly crowned champion in the big underdog spot. And I thought he did some great single stuff in Lucha Underground. I'd like to see some more of that in AEW. Like, I don't want to say Pentagon is holding him back, but I'm more interested in him as a singles wrestler and a tag wrestler. And then Rey Mysterio, number 2, that was a big surprise for me. It's a huge surprise for the live crowd. I thought he was a really good fit in Lucha Underground. So, obviously, a guy who's back with WWE. I thought it was a neat way to start the match. It's a bit of a dream match to have Phoenix against Rey Mysterio. I'm not sure they've ever had a singles match together. King Cuerno, he's El Hijo del Fantasma. So another guy who's been hoovered up by WWE. And again, I thought he was good in Lucha Underground. He's got one of the best suicide dives in the business. So he signed with NXT last August. John, do you know how many televised NXT matches he's had in the past 9 months?
I'm going to guess 0.
Well, he's had 2 actually, so wow. you went below that. He's in the Cruiserweight title tournament. He's at 1-1, so I think things are looking good for him.
Wait, so it took him like 8 months to get on TV?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
They
need all these people. They need all these people, though, Joel.
Definitely.
That's why they immediately cut 10,000 people. The moment their fucking stock, they need to boost the stock price because all these people are necessary. But anyway.
Yeah, totally. So we got Argenis, he's working for Triple A. He's a bit of a job here, but he's just there to give someone for Rey Mysterio to pin. Johnny Mundo, I think he did his best work in Lucha Underground with Ricochet. So that's 3 people signed for WWE so far. So Joey Ryan, he was playing this like sleazy, cowardly, bent policeman gimmick, which I found infinitely more interesting than the penis stuff he does. So given his storyline in the company, the handcuffs made sense. And he's like a running joke in this match as he just gets clowned on by everyone. Prince Puma, so obviously that's Ricochet. The whole promotion was built around him, and rightly so, because he's an incredible wrestler. Maybe a bit odd to put him behind a mask, but I think the quality of his matches in Lucha Underground spoke for themselves. I mean, it's not as good as the Ospreay New Japan stuff, but it's not too far behind. And now he's losing to Brendan Vink and Shane Thorne in an empty arena Raw in under 5 minutes to the surprise of absolutely nobody, apart from maybe Trevor Mann himself. But anyway, he felt like a big star in this company. However crappy their contract situations were. So we've got Jack Evans, who's in AEW now. I thought he was, again, good fit in Lucha Underground, did some fun tag stuff with PJ Black, had a really good singles match with Aerostar. They were feuding with Aerostar and Drago at the time. So maybe I'm doing a better job filling you in on the stories than the announcers did. So we got Taya now with Impact. She's part of Johnny Mundo's Worldwide Underground stable, along with Jack Evans. So there was some fun teamwork action in the match. Cage, and I always love it in these kind of matches when a big man enters a rumble and all the smaller guys bump like crazy for them. And they built on some of the storylines between Johnny Mundo and Taya, who's also now with Impact. Cage, he had some fun matches in this company with the Mac and Pentagon and Prince Puma and There was a fun three-way with Mil Muertes and Sami Callihan. And I think Lucha Underground knew how to book him well. He always looked impressive to me, but he usually does to a fan who's seen Brian Cage for the first time until you realize his limitations. Mascarita Sagrada, I don't think he's done anything since Lucha Underground finished. It's just there, the comic relief spot. But I thought it was cool that he got a moment teaming up with Ray to take out Marty Martinez, who I don't know what Martinez is up to. He's bouncing around the indies. Had some good matches with Pentagon and Killshot, aka Shane Strickland. Drago's AAA, the Mac, Willie Mac, Impact. So him going after Marty was a nice bit of story continuity because they had a feud before and he had an ongoing beef with Cage. And Chavo going after Mascarita, showing himself like a bully. I thought that was cool. PJ Black, the formerly Justin Gabriel, WWE. So he's with ROH now, I think. Aerostar, so he was in the tag feud with Drago against PJ and Jack Evans. Dragon Azteca Jr., so that's Ray Horace, now with ROH. Tejano, I think he's AAA. His last two matches were against Dave the Clown and Psycho Clown. So, according to Cage Match, he appears to be exclusively engaged in clown-based feuds these days. And then Mil Muertes, who I think is with CMLL now. And so he gets jumped by Pentagon, which I thought was a really good way to keep their story going, but also take him out of the match before Matanza arrived. And the same in getting Cage out of there. So Mil Muertes and Cage were two guys who might have made Matanza look less physically impressive, and it left all the smaller guys in the ring who Matanza could just ragdoll. And then just a little hat tip to Dario Cueto, who a lot of people might have recognized in the recent series of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And then, for my favorite moment of this match is the 21st entrant, Matanza Cueto, also known as Jeff Cobb. And this is kind of like this year's WWE Royal Rumble, but in reverse. And it's an interesting choice to have a guy in his first match in the promotion win the world title. But I thought Lucha Underground executed it so well in this, weird comic book world they've got where Matanza, he was debuting after months, like literally months of sinister build-up as this number one, +1 entrant. And it was like a previously fast-paced match, just like crashes into a brick wall, but in a good way. And he's just laying out everyone with his whole moveset. And like quite a gutsy booking decision, but I thought it really worked. And the eliminations were laid out in a neat way too. So, like, first of all, he pins Phoenix, who is the champion first, to show what a threat he is. And he no-sells the Max finisher. And Aerostar's flippy stuff, he just swats aside. Tejano goes after him with a rope. The rope does nothing. And he's strong enough to break the metal Joey Ryan's handcuffs. And after all that, he's still able to take out a top prospect like Dragon Azteca. And then he can do the aerial stuff, the standing shooting star press with Chavo. And then the double team by legend like Rey Mysterio and the ace of the company, Prince Puma. So they'd taken out Mil Muertes before, but they can't take Matanza out. And I thought it was a really cool closing stretch with Rey Mysterio where you think like maybe he's going to recreate his Royal Rumble win of 10 years ago with the same move that eliminated Randy Orton back then. But Matanza just plucks him out of the air, destroys him with the Wrath of the Gods. I thought it looked incredible. So I thought really good booking. And I like how the way he used like a wide variety of his power moves to eliminate people. It's not like Brock Lesnar where he's just like spamming German suplexes over and over again. Because aside from the Wrath of the Gods, there's like a triple rolling gut wrench power bomb. There's the standing shooting star press. He does a bridging German. He's got a choke slam. He's got a set out power bomb, which I thought made him look really powerful. Like all his moves are strong enough to beat half the roster. And then he's saving his big finisher for the top guys like Phoenix and Ray. So I also thought Cobb showed good acting chops here as this like abused man-child when he's looking at the belt in complete confusion at the end. So I picked this because I just thought it was a tight, cohesive, well-put battle royal that continued old feuds and started up a few new ones. It got Jeff Cobb over as like a literal monster and made me excited to see what would happen next in the show. Like lots of little touches to add to these storylines. And it's exactly what I want to this kind of match. But I appreciate that for someone who doesn't follow the product, it was a bit confusing.
Yeah, it was very, it just kind of felt like stuff would happen and I'd be like, okay. like at one point when Johnny Mundo comes in and breaks that cinder block over Cage's head, I'm like, was he eliminated? Is he still in the match? Is he just coming back out? Why is he attacking this man with a cinder block? What's going on? There's a lot of that. So I don't know. It's not like it's I don't want to say it was bad or anything. I mean, I could tell that there's good stuff. I will say the thing at the end with Jeff Cobb, that I didn't enjoy at all. And maybe it gets better as it goes along. But like, first of all, I just don't think he was a super convincing monster. Like he's not that much bigger than everybody else to do the. I mean, he's not taller for sure, but he's got the muscle mass, I guess. But like at some points, it felt like the complete Kane 1997 no selling of everything just felt like a little over the top, and I just wish they would have let him do like more actual spots at least than just like, I don't know. It just didn't work for me. So, the last thing with Ray was by far the most irritating part, but like before that, the crowd really didn't like this at all. And you watched longer, so maybe they get behind it later, but like they seemed like they were really annoyed by, the Cobb monster push, and not in a good way. Like they were just like, it had that like lightly booing / like, silence reaction that like WWE gets a lot nowadays. So that just felt like it went on. It felt like it went on forever, and it just didn't really. Like that dragged even more than the rest of the match for me. It just felt like, I want this to be over already. So I don't know. Maybe it is better later on, but it didn't work here for me just watching it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, maybe I should have picked the Grave Consequences one, but it was fun for me at least to go back and watch this. So hope you can take some consolation from that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it then. And it definitely didn't make me want to check out more Lucha Underground, but there was some cool stuff here, I guess. So let's go to my second pick, which was Izami Kodaka versus Masa Takanashi from DDT on January 30th, 2016. It's for the KOD Openweight title from the 2016 Sweet Dreams event. First of all, I picked this because I would have never in a million years assumed you watched this match. I'm assuming you did not watch it, right?
No, I've seen very little DDT.
That's what I figured. So I thought this was a very good example of it's a match again that I adore. So if you hate it, I'm going to be very upset. But it's like a great example to me of like a Japanese wrestling match that is very different from what you get from New Japan, obviously. And I'll talk about the reasons why I really liked it as we go along. But it's a very indie match, first of all. Like they both guys look indie. I mean, I'm definitely not going to deny that. They both have a very indie look. There are spots in the match that really aren't the smoothest and are not the most polished, which is the one flaw of the match and the one reason why I couldn't go like a full 5 on it. But the match has like this kind of technical wrestling at like kind of like with the cradles and the all that kind of stuff that you're not going to get really in a New Japan style match very often. And it builds in a way that's really interesting. I think like okay, when people talk about callback spots now, I feel like it's become a parody basically because that fucking like Gargano. I immediately think of that Gargano Ciampa feud where it's like, oh, every match features callbacks to the last match. Like just referencing a past match does not make a match good, and especially when those matches are fucking brutally terrible shit like some of those Gargano Ciampa matches are. But what I really like and what I think really elevates a match, I don't think you need to call back 50 matches of your past and make the viewer have to go back and watch 3 prior matches for this match to hit you on the same level. But I really love when matches build within the match, when spots in the match lead to another spot later in the match, and it has that internal logic. And this is the best example of that to me. Like this match, stuff happens early in the match that leads directly to stuff late in the match and like counters late in the match. And, stuff pays off in a really, really entertaining way, in a really interesting way. So that, like, I like the internal logic of a match, the stuff building and calling back, earlier spots in a match. Like, that's what I really love. As far as callbacks of past matches, I mean, that's great, but like, I think that's become a very overrated aspect of wrestling nowadays. I guess before I ask you for your opinions on the match, I'll give a little bit of background. So Izami Kodaka is a really interesting guy. He started out with, if people aren't aware of him, he started out with Taka Michinoku's Kaientai Dojo in 2002. He very quickly went freelance in 2004. He ended up in the DET system in 2005 and with their offshoot Pro Wrestling Union. And he would go on to form Basara in 2015 after Union closed. It's kind of like their direct successor. They even used the same top title, the Union Max title. At the same time, he also started with Big Japan in 2007, where he's active to this day. Now, he is one of the most varied wrestlers, I think, in Japanese wrestling because he does singles regular matches like this. He does singles death matches, which you can see them. He's held the Big Japan Deathmatch Heavyweight title multiple times, including just in 2019. And then he also has a really famous tag team with another indie guy, Yuko Miyamoto, from the even smaller 666 promotion. And they've wrestled both death and regular tag matches. So, if you look at, because of all the stuff that he does, if you go look at Izami Kodaka's like title history page on Cage Match, there's like 30 titles or something. Like he's held almost so many belts, so many different titles. He went back and won the Kaientai Dojo top title. He's the current All Asia Tag Champions with Yuko Miyamoto right now in All Japan. He's held all sorts of other tag titles with Miyamoto and other singles titles. And at this point, this is his only reign with DDT's top title. And this reign was kind of like almost to advertise Basara, I guess, because the Basara sub-brand was just about to start or just starting. I think their first show was actually January 2016. It was called Raising an Army. But yeah, Basara would go on to break off from DDT, and now, as of this year, is like a totally separate promotion. But yeah, at this point, they were starting out as a DDT sub-brand. So he won the title from Yukio Sakaguchi in November 2015, which was his only his first title and his only KOD Openweight title. The guy he's facing here, Masa Takanashi, is just like a DDT lifer. He started around the exact same time as Izami started. He started in 2003. He very briefly held the KOD title in 2012. He beat Shinshiro Takagi in April, but he lost it a month later to Yuji Hino. And this was his first title shot in about 2 years, since he had come up short against Harashima in 2014. This is a really good clash of styles, because both wrestlers are like, these technical / like almost like trickster wrestlers, especially Masa. You'll see like Masa's like almost like an Eddie Guerrero type, where he uses these underhanded tactics, but he's still beloved, basically. So, I'll call him out as we go along in the match of some of the underhanded tactics he uses here to try to win, but that's generally his thing. But they're both very proficient on the mat, and they both have a lot of different counters. And Masa loves flash pans, as you'll see throughout the match. So, with all that set up, Joel, what did you think of this match?
When I saw Kodaka's name, I thought it was going to be a death match. But it's DDT in a nutshell for me, because I liked it. It's a good match. Two talented guys. The work is crisp. There's some really creative spots, like cool moves I haven't seen before. Really hot crowd, lots of near falls down the closing stretch. But I feel like the same sort of cold detachment I get watching like a Marvel superhero movie, where it's like it's really flashy, but I don't feel anything. And maybe it's just that I don't know about the product. I don't know about the wrestlers. I don't have that emotional investment in it, and that's making me view it in sort of like a detached or an extra critical light. But when I see matches like this, and like when I watched Takeshita versus Endo, like to my ignorant, untrained eyes, I'm totally willing to be wrong on this, and you can educate me, but it just looks like a lot of cool moves. And I thought at one point it's going to be a leg match, but they seem to kind of blow that off towards the end, and like the finish is Takanashi just getting kicked in the head. And I accept I'm probably in the minority with that, and I'm willing to be taught around here, but I think I've just reached a point where I feel like I've missed the boat with DDT. So like I'm Russell Crowe in Les Mis, staring through the window with a grumpy look on my face. But talk me around, help me see the error of my ways here. What am I missing?
See, I think they build to that. So I'll explain it a little bit, I guess. First of all, you can see Masa's underhanded tactics throughout the early portion of the match. He at one point grabs Izami in a headlock, and Izami makes the ropes, which should obviously be a break, but instead Masa just rubs his head against the ropes, which is just such a great little spot, and then turns it into a springing bulldog by kicking off the top turnbuckle. So that I really liked. And there's this really incredible sequence of transitions where Masa Takanashi has him in a crossface. Izami is reaching for the ropes. He almost gets it. And then at this last second, Masa grabs his other arm and turns it into a backslide for 2. And then immediately turns that into a guillotine choke. So if you're not into that kind of stuff, then I totally get why this match isn't going to land for you like it did for me. I love watching dudes just fucking, turn holds into, flash pins and everything, especially when it looks as smooth as it does here. So that stuff is awesome. there's this great sequence where that really puts the match into overdrive, where Masa like pulls him back after a headlock and just fucking drops him on his head with a backdrop. Izami no-sells it, and they exchange super kicks, and then Masa tries like this first flipping cradle for a 2 count. And then here's where they do the leg stuff. Now, here's where I disagree with you. I don't think they do so much leg stuff, and I've been a very critical person when it comes to leg matches. I think they wait until late enough in the match that you cannot reasonably call this a leg match. Like, I think the leg stuff, it builds towards the finish, and, I think it all makes sense for what they do, but I don't think this is a leg match. Like, they wait so long to do it that I don't think you can call it a leg match. But it starts with like the really crazy dragon screw in the corner that Masa sells like death, and that sets up the big leg hold and ankle lock sequence. And then Masa comes up with this awesome counter where he uses his other leg to push the leg down, which you almost never see that. And he turns that into a pin, a pinfall, the roll up counter, almost gets the pin. And there are some incredible flash pin near falls by Masa in this match. Like, I don't know how the referee didn't almost count 3, and you could hear the crowd every time just like completely gasp and lose their shit. Like, how was that not 3? So like, this is like, if you're like me and you love flash pins, you have to watch this match, because there are some of the most incredible flash pin near falls in this match of all time, probably.
There was one that's like 2.99999 that got me at the end.
Yeah. And that whole thing I just talked about, the roll-up counter, that starts like this sequence of flash pin attempts, and I think that's where the really incredibly close near falls by Masa come. And then, so Masa throughout this match, he keeps trying for this Yoshitonic. First, he almost does it from the apron to the floor, but the crowd is like, "Oh my god, you're going to kill the guy!" If you don't know what Yoshitonic is, it's basically like the guy he ends up like I don't know how to describe this, like the legs around your waist and like flips over and like the sunset power bomb. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you know the move, you can probably picture it in your head. But yeah, so Masa blocks it on the apron. Izami blocks it on the apron, which is good because Masa probably would have killed him. The second time Masa tries it, Izami blocks it by just fucking sitting down on him, which looks brutal. And then he goes right back to the leg lock. Masa comes really close to giving up and then finally makes the ropes. Then Masa tries the Yoshitonic for a third time, this time off the top rope. Izami blocks it again, so Masa turns it into a... Masa is ready for him to block it this time, and he turns it into a sunset flip. He basically sunset flips himself down to the ring, and then does a top rope power bomb. So that was like a great counter to the counter. He remembers to sell the leg after, which is great, even though the leg work, it hasn't taken over the match or anything. And then Masa finally hits his fucking Yoshitonic on the 4th try to like this enormous response. It feels like this is the fucking finish. Like the entire match is building this spot. And then fucking Izami kicks out, which the first time I saw that, I remember, like, I didn't even mention this before. This match is like the match that made me really fall in love with DDT. Like I didn't see it until 6 months after it took place. And, this was the match that convinced me to start like watching it regularly, basically. And like, I remember the first time I watched this and, Masa finally hits that Yoshitonic, my fucking heart was in my throat. Like, oh my God, this is it. Like, he wins with this, right? Because it builds the entire time. And when Izami just kicks out, I'm like, this is fucking incredible. Like, they build this spot, throughout the match. They make you think that it's going to be the finish, and then it's just not the finish. So it's it's done perfectly. But yeah, and then there's like so much greatness in the final stretch with them playing off the earlier moves that are now countered. Masa, he basically, when Izami goes for the leg trap again, the way he kept getting the leg hold, Masa sits down to block it. He turns into yet another cradle for another near fall. Izami finally realizes the submissions are not going to work. He can't get this man to tap out. So that's where he finally switches gears. He hits his 2 top rope knee drops, which is like one of his finishers, off the top rope. And then finally, he escapes a few more counter attempts by Masa. He hits these repeated super kicks to a kneeling Masa, and that gets the pin. So this is where I disagree with you on the finish. I don't think they just blew off the leg stuff. I think they told this story where like the leg stuff was not going to work, where he just wasn't able to get the whole back end the way he wanted. And, Masa at this point was ready to counter and just was always able to escape at the end. So Izami basically had to give up on it and just was like, well, if you're not going to fucking tap out, then I'm going to fucking just kill you. And that's what he does. He hits these 2 top rope knee drops and hits these super kicks and just fucking, just kills him and bends them. So I don't know. I can get where you're coming from, I guess, but like to me, it's structured in a non-traditional way that still makes sense to me in the story of the match. And the fact that they play at your expectations, they make you think Masa hitting this fourth Yoshitonic is going to be the pin. They make you think Izami going back to this leg lock is going to be the finish, but then they completely take it away from you and are like, well, that stuff didn't work. So now Izami just has to kill him. I thought that was perfect. So I absolutely adore this match. The only reason why I can't go the full 5 is because, there's some stuff early on that's like kind of sloppy. So, and a little awkward, but like it just builds so well and tells such a great like internal story, and like all those fucking near falls and the crowd going completely crazy. It's so great. It's one of my favorite matches. I went 4 3/4. I'm sure you're much lower, but I adore this match.
Yeah, maybe probably I would appreciate it more on a second watch with those nuances in mind. What I want is if I sit down to watch one of these DDT shows, is someone to sit with me and explain it all, because maybe I'm just sort of too out of the loop with it to be able to fully appreciate it. But you certainly shone some light on the narrative within that match.
I will say the first time I saw it, I was not in the loop either on DDT. I don't know. It really landed for me for whatever reason. But yeah, do you have anything else to say about the match, I guess, before we move on?
No, I thought it was good, exciting match. I enjoyed watching it.
The final match we're going to talk about was the fan vote match, Tetsuya Naito versus Shinsuke Nakamura from New Japan, August 4th, 2011, of course, the G1 final for 2011. Now, you had put up a 3-way match, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins versus John Cena from the Royal Rumble in 2015. The problem, Joel, is you cursed yourself to lose your own fan vote because you retreated. It was really close for a while. Like they were both right around 50%. Maybe one would get to 51, the other one would get to 51. Then you retweeted from the Super J-Cast account, filled with New Japan fans, and it was no longer close. Like it went to like 60-40 at one point. If the final tally ended up being 56-44 for Naito Nakamura. So yeah, I think you cursed yourself to lose this vote, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you know what, John? I'm glad that I did, because this match was great. I loved it.
Okay.
And I wouldn't watch that otherwise.
And you had never seen it before? No?
No, never. This is my first time.
So, okay. So again, I'll give you a little bit of background. So Naito, he had briefly joined Nakamura's Chaos stable along with his No Limit tag team partner, Yujiro Takahashi, in April 2010. But it was very obvious that like Naito was not going to last as a heel, because like, and this is one of those things I think is lost to history, but like they were just talking about this in the Voice Wrestling Discord. By the end of 2010, the crowd is super behind Naito. Like he's facing Tanahashi, I think, at Korakuen Hall, and he's technically the heel, but the crowd is like 1,000% behind Naito at this point. So when they turned him face in 2011, it was not some like mistake or anything. Like the crowd loved this man. And it comes across here where like when he comes out, you know, it's weird hearing the entrance music and not hearing any reaction. But, you know, and I think if you first watch this, you're probably like, oh, he wasn't over, huh? But like, I just think it was a new theme song and they didn't know the song basically. But by the time, like when the match starts with an enormous Naito chant. Like this crowd is 1,000% behind him the entire match. But yeah, basically May 2011, Yujiro turns on him and splits up No Limit. So Naito returns to Sekigun and Yujiro stays in Chaos, where he'd stay as a single until he joined Bullet Club in 2014. But Naito, you know, he goes into this G1. First of all, after he gets turned on, he goes back to CMLL for another month, which is why he's wearing all this stuff about Mexico, I guess. And then he comes back to the G1. He goes 6-3 to win Block A. Nakamura went 7-2 to win Block B. By the way, one of his only losses was to Hiroki Goto because, you know, that feud was still going strong at this point. But yeah, this final, I mean, when I watched this, like I was already kind of into Naito in real time. You know, I really liked Team No Limit and I really liked, you know, just Naito in general. But this match is like where it's like, okay, this guy is like one of my favorite wrestlers. And obviously that would slowly turn into my absolute favorite wrestler. But like, this is a big turning point for my fandom with Tetsuya Naito. Like, this is like, holy shit, this guy's really good. And that's why later on when the New Japan fans would start turning on him 2 years later in 2013, I would get very upset. But, you know, it all worked out in the end, obviously. But yeah, this match, if people listening to this have not seen it and don't know, they are really into babyface Naito here. Did that surprise you as someone who wasn't, who I guess has only heard about this stuff secondhand?
I think it's impossible to watch this match and not get caught up cheering for Naito, because he's so good in this match that it's just impossible not to want to cheer for the guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, he is really, really good. But yeah, so this match, I guess, one note for getting the match itself, Nakamura would win this, of course, and as most expected to at the time, Naito's first G1 win wouldn't be until 2 years later. And this was the last G1 where the winner did not get the automatic IWGP heavyweight title shot at Wrestle Kingdom. Nakamura's shot at the champion, Hiroshi Tanahashi, came about 1 month later is this August? Yes, this is August. So 1 month later in September 19th at Kobe World Hall, and he did not win. And that was Nakamura's final shot at the IWGP heavyweight title. September 2011. He never got another shot at the title before he left in January 2016. That's how wrapped up in the Intercontinental he was. So to answer your question from earlier, I do think he would have eventually gotten the title again, or at least gotten another title shot. I think they were building maybe to him and Okada or something, but they kept him away from that title for a long, long time. So, this is so basically the entire thing of this match is Nakamura working over Naito. He plays a big bully, keeps daring Naito to hit him back. Nakamura is fucking awesome here as the heel. What did you think of his work here as someone who hasn't seen a lot of Nakamura?
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting that you picked two Nakamura matches for this show. And I think this one is a great comparison point to the Goto match, because you can see, for me, how much more compelling Nakamura match is with what I think is a more dynamic babyface underdog opponent. Because like Naito being the spirited youngster, challenging the favorite, really helps to bring out Nakamura's cocky prickishness. And you can see here that Nakamura is just starting to figure out his persona. It's not quite there yet, but he's got a bit more swagger and attitude than the Goto match.
Yeah, you can see it when he comes out. Like, if people watch both these matches, the first match when he comes out, like, he is still pretty much an MMA shooter Nakamura mode. I mean, he has no real, no hint of the personality that will come later on. Here, he is, he's moving around a little bit. It's nothing like he would, the more famous stuff he would do later, but, you can see it kind of starting. He's starting to develop, the little bit of swagger. So, but yeah, so Nakamura, he basically plays a big bully. He keeps daring Naito to hit him back. When Naito finally does, Nakamura really fucking starts laying into him, and that is awesome. But that goes on for a while, and then Naito finally gets this leg trip from the apron and then springs up to top rope for a missile drop kick, which is a kind of a proto combination cabron, I guess. And then he falls up with this knee breaker into this awesome pair of basement drop kicks. The second one is this basement drop kick off the top rope, which how often have you seen a missile basement drop kick? That was fucking awesome. But then Nakamura comes back with this reverse power slam to Naito off the top rope, which is a pretty sick bump by Naito, I should say. And then Naito does this again, goes back to the basement drop kicks with this awesome counter basement drop kick to stop a charging Nakamura's Bamaye attempt. And then Naito, he lands on his feet after a Nakamura German. It's this great diving forearm and his own German for a near fall, and then another one for another great near fall. And then Naito, he slams Nakamura, goes for the Stardust Press. He misses. Nakamura immediately fucking murders him with this Bamaye to the back of the head, that's one of my favorite sequences of all time. I love that sequence. He's unable to capitalize with the cover. And then Naito, he gets some absolutely incredible flash pin near falls as Sumo Hall is absolutely losing their mind. But he makes a mistake. He tries the flying form a second time. And again, there's another, just like the last match, there's stuff paying off in the same match. And Nakamura counters it with this double knee counter that's great. And then he finally finishes him with the final Bamaye for the pin. So this is an awesome match. It's not perfect or anything. I honestly think if Nakamura had stayed past January 2016 and they did a proper feud with him against LIJ Naito, they could have topped this and had a real 5-star classic. But this is still an awesome match. And it's a match I've seen a million times because it's two of my all-time favorite wrestlers, and they're like their only real big historic meeting. They met like another G1 in 2013, I think, but that's not nowhere near as memorable as this. So that one I've seen only a couple of times. This one I watched this match like when Nicole joked when she came in, and I was watching it, and she's like, "Oh, you're watching this again?" I was like, "Yeah, for the show." And she's like, "Why'd you need to watch this for the show? You probably have the entire thing fucking memorized by now because she's seen me watch it so many times." But yeah, really awesome match. 4.5 stars for me. I don't know if you want to give a similar star rating.
Yeah, I will be there or thereabouts. And I just think Naito is so good here. And I know it's a popular take to say that the Stardust Genius gimmick was shit or whatever, but like, how can you watch this match and not think he's awesome? Like, I think Stardust Genius Naito is great to watch. I like the Keiji Muto influence in his moveset. He's very physically dynamic. And, obviously I'm not in the camp that thinks Naito is a broken down husk of a man in 2020, but he clearly moves much more quickly and freely here. And I especially like when he flicks that switch and starts going after Nakamura's leg and living up to his nickname. Like you don't have to be a nasty, mean heel to work a body part in a compelling way. And you're cheering for him as the smart kid who's working out a way to take down the bigger threat. And yeah, you mentioned it, that great moment where he counters the Bomaye with the drop kick to the knee as like an absolute desperation move. And throughout the match, he's selling those knee shots from Nakamura so well. Like he's almost sobbing as Nakamura's cracking him in the ribs. And like for me, he's everything Goto wasn't in the previous match. And I think people forget what a compelling babyface Imperial Naito is. Because, with El Ingobernable Naito, we get used to him being cocky and spitting at people, winding them up and that. But for this match, I found there are a lot of parallels with Night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom against Okada, with Naito as the underdog babyface, which I think is great to watch. And one other thing, I love the length of this match. I wish we could have more 20-minute main events. And it was tremendous, especially considering they both already wrestled that night. And you got Naito crying on his way out with Hiromu, right in the feels there. And yeah, like you, I just would have loved to have seen LIJ Naito versus Nakamura. Who knows in the future what we might get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost like if Nakamura comes back now, would he even be able to do it? But you never know, because I mean, he has been so brutal in WWE that like, it almost makes you wonder. It's like, yeah, the style sucks, and I'm sure he's not trying, but like, could you just flip that switch after fucking 4 years of, even more probably by the time if he ever comes back, because he's not coming back anytime soon. Like, could you fucking flip that switch and just go back to like being this badass? Like, is he too old? Is he too broken down? Was it just way too long and, playing fucking, all right, do your taunt, buddy. Make sure you hit your entrance. That's the most important part. All right, now you're done. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know if he could do it. I mean, I don't know if you saw my tweet from yesterday, but people, because when I was watching these Nakamura matches, obviously, I tweeted something like, man, Shinsuke Nakamura is one hell of a pro wrestler before his tragically early retirement in 2016. And that's like one of my most popular tweets in a while, because I guess I was expecting someone to like at me and be angry. Like, it's got like, 280 likes or something. I thought someone by now would be like, oh no, he's great. And it's like, no one has spoken up in defense.
Maybe you've muted and blocked all those people already.
No, I don't. I mean, there are WWE people who follow me, and I just think even the WWE people don't even like Nakamura at this point. So I just think it's like not a. I just think they don't. It's not a guy they were going to come. Like if I said, Daniel Bryan sucks now, I know I would get pushed back on that. But like Nakamura sucks, it's like no one. Nakamura sucks now. No one fucking cares. I mean, like it's pretty much self-evident. So.
Yeah, I think he could be rehab. Like if you look at the trajectory of someone like Kenta, who went through that meat grinder in WWE with the injuries and whatnot, and was able to go to New Japan and readjust his style, and I think do tremendous work. I think Nakamura could do something similar.
That's true. There'd definitely be a transition period, though, I think, like there was for Kenta. So I think it would be awkward for a little while at least, but who knows? It'd be interesting. I mean, he would have so many natural feuds if he came back. Where it's like I fantasy booked us in TEW before, because it's like he should definitely come back as a heel, who like abandoned the company, and you could do the legend match for Tanahashi, the match with Okada, the Naito match, which he's never faced LIJ Naito at all. I mean, you could do the revisit Ibushi again. I mean, there's so many matches just off the top, just with like the very top guys, let alone like anybody else who might come up by the time he, by the time he ever comes back. But I don't know. It just feels like I like it's not. It's one of those things I'm not going to get my hopes up for because he's already in his 40s, I believe. Yeah, he's exactly 40 years old, and I don't know if he can do it. I think it's an open question whether or not he could come back and even if he wanted to, which at this point I don't know if he does, and I kind of think there's a lot of evidence he might not want to. But it's like so I don't know. I guess I'm a long-winded way for me to say I'll leave the memories alone with Nakamura. It's like if this is all I have is the archive of his amazing matches, I can make do with that because I think he had a lot of really incredible matches. And if other people haven't seen a lot of him, I definitely recommend, diving in and checking them out. So, because there's a lot of really cool stuff.
What I would like to see from you, John, is doing like a split screen watch along with the Nakamura Ibushi match and the Nakamura Sami Zayn match. Like, forensically getting into this. Pause. Look, it's the exact same thing here.
People were like really deep in denial about that when it happened, and now I think every time it's come up, people are much more willing to admit it. But yeah, I mean, like at the time when that match happened, I was in Japan when that happened. I watched it. I can very easily remember this because, like I said, it was my first trip to Japan. I remember that trip very, very well. And I was in my little tiny one-person single hotel room in Shinagawa at I think the Shinagawa Prince Hotel. And, I didn't have anything to do that night. It was like, I got back at like 10 p.m. and I was like, well, let me check out this Nakamura takeover debut that just happened, I guess the previous night, America time. It was the only thing. I think I might have watched like a women's match from that show. I don't remember what it was now. And I didn't watch any of WrestleMania. Like I waited. I remember the other people on my trip, like a bunch of them got up early the morning of WrestleMania Japan time and like watched it live. And I was like, you guys have fun. I am in this country that I've wanted to go to since I was like fucking 10 years old. I got better things to do than watch fucking WWE. So and I remember Joey Bay, who was on the trip with me, he's gonna love it. He's getting a shout out 2 weeks in a row. He started watching it. I believe he can correct me if I'm wrong. He started watching with them and like gave up a few hours in and was like, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to go hang out with John and we're going to go see some Tokyo sites because this is stupid. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, so I watched that Nakamura match, back to Nakamura Zayn. I watched it in my hotel room at night, like pretty much right after it happened. And, I remember watching and being like, what the fuck is this? They're just doing... Like Sami Zayn is just doing all of it's like Nakamura Ibushi with Sami Zayn's Kota Ibushi. I was like, other than that, like he does that famous El Generico, like dive through the ropes, swinging DDT on the floor, and that's like the only spot of the match that like he's not just lifting from Kota Ibushi. I'm just like, what? Like, I can't believe like people, and then I look at the reviews and expect to see people be like, oh yeah, it's just Nakamura Ibushi again. It's good, but it's the same exact match. And so people are like, this is the greatest match of all time, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So that was like one of those moments where I'm just like, I don't understand I don't understand A, the NXT fan base, and B, the level of like the pass and like that people gave NXT in general. It was a very bizarre experience for me. I was watching that match and maybe it's just like I watched that Nakamura Ibushi match more times than most human beings on the earth. Like I watched that match, again, just like this Nakamura Naito match, I watched it like 500 times. So I have it memorized like pretty much in my head. But I was like, yeah, here's that spot, here's that spot, here's that spot, here's that spot. And they all lined up perfectly. Like they're almost in the exact same order as a Nakamura Ibushi match. So I'm like, I guess there's nothing wrong with Nakamura lifting from himself if you want to, if you like, I'm not saying it's like some moral failing, but it's like, why are we praising the exact same match that we already saw? Like it's some new classic. It's just, it's the same fucking match. So I don't know. It was and people got so angry at me. That was like one of those times on the internet where like I had people in my mentions like calling me every name in the book and just like very mad at me for pointing this out and like I guess shitting on this match that everybody else loved. But yeah, Nakamura versus Sami Zayn. I said it 4 years ago. I'll say it now. It's Nakamura versus Kota Ibushi, but with a 7 trillion times more annoying crowd. So
yeah, well, when I watched that, I hadn't seen Nakamura Ibushi, so I thought Nakamura and Sami Zayn was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I do remember saying at the time on my other podcast, my Smartcast, that I was worried how Nakamura would keep up this standard of match. And I thought, I'm a bit concerned that might actually be his best match. Is he going to have a better match than this? And I turned out to be right. So there you go.
I mean, some people like his NXT stuff. I never liked it. I mean, after that Sami Zayn match, I mean, like,
I'll be rude. Come on.
But and Samoa Joe stuff was bad too. And I mean, maybe not even bad is the wrong word, but like 3-star stuff. And then obviously that AJ feud. Once he gets to the main roster, like, they have him jobbing to Jinder, and he had. I mean, this is a hot take, I guess, but like he has a better match with Jinder Mahal than he ever had with AJ Styles. Like, how the fuck does that work? But anyway,
he was good in the Royal Rumble. I like that one.
Yeah, he was really good in that Rumble. That's true. But yeah, man, that AJ feud. Oh my god, that's one of those things where it's like when people tell me they liked it, I'm just like, okay, like you like they had an incredibly disappointing match at WrestleMania. And then the rest of the feud is just based around kicking each other in the balls. It's just not entertaining or interesting, much like anything else involving that company. So, And did you see Nakamura recently threatened us with a resumption of that feud? He said he doesn't think it's over yet, and they'll get back to it at some point. I'm like, what? First of all, you're both heels, sir. Second of all, please don't do that. Please don't. Please stop threatening us. We're living through a crisis, okay? We don't need to be threatened with more Nakamura AJ Styles matches. Thank you.
Yeah, give me the Jinder Mahal rubber match.
There you go. But yeah, all right. So I guess we can wrap it up there. We went on that random little tangent, but anyway, Joel, go ahead and give me some plugs.
Right. Please listen to my podcast, The Super J Cast. You can find us on Twitter at The Super J Cast. If you like New Japan Pro Wrestling, even though they're not running any shows at the moment, me and my wonderful co-host, Damon McDonald, are doing some nice dives into the archives to talk about some older shows that you might not have watched. So we've got some good stuff lined up for next week. I've picked one match from each decade. I got one from the 80s, the 90s, the thousands, and the tens. I don't know what we call that decade.
I call the zeros the aughts. Am I the only one that calls it the aughts?
The aughts. What do you call the decade after that then?
Yeah, the tens. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So there you go. If you like New Japan, please give us a.
What are the matches? Can you plug it for us?
I can. Let me just check and see what they are because I forgot.
Because this will be up probably like a day or two after we're up, I guess. So.
Yeah, I've got Riki Choshu versus Antonio Inoki from the 2nd of August, 1984. Koji Kanemoto versus El Samurai from 5th of June, 1997.
Oh, that match rolls. That match rolls.
Milano Collection, AT versus Inoue from 17th of June, 2007. Marufuji versus Okada from 10th of October, 2016.
That match also rules, I think. I don't remember. One of them was really good and one of them wasn't. Maybe it was the G1 match that I liked better, but I guess we'll see. Maybe I'll go back and check. I don't remember. I didn't look. But yeah. Actually, no, I think the more I think about it, I think I like the G1 match way better. But either way. Anyway, Joel, it was a pleasure having you on as always. You don't want to plug your own Twitter? Joel B. Abraham.
Joel J. Abraham.
I said B. Abraham. Sorry. Yeah, so Joel is on Twitter. We are also on Twitter. It's at Wrestle Omakase. Wrestling did not fit. And folks, the 5 matches series rolls along next week. I have on from the Street Fight podcast, returning to the show for the first time in I think like 2 or 3 years, Mr. Murder Brian on Twitter. At Murder Brian. So it would be very exciting to have him back on. We've already picked each other's matches, so I can already tell you. Well, actually, I'll save the surprise. We picked a bunch of matches other than the fan vote ones. So, but yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to have some more Japanese wrestling, some American wrestling. We'll go a little bit obscure, and also a terrible American wrestling match that did not get voted in will be discussed next week. So for people who wanted to hear that one, when I put it up for vote, I think you probably, if you listen to the episode, you probably already know what match I'm talking about. That will be that is one of my actual picks this time, not my fan vote pick. So that will be talked about next week. A truly awful match that I'm looking forward to mocking. So we'll talk about that next week. But in the meantime, thank you as always for listening. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.